I still remember the way my sister's wine glass caught the sunlight. Rose, of course. Everything about her was performative. The way she lifted it, the way her husband smiled beside her like she was about to announce a pregnancy, the way my parents leaned in. We were at the annual family picnic, our backyard decorated with fairy lights and judgment. And I was the permanent disappointment standing off to the side, nursing a lemonade because I couldn't even afford the wine I'd brought. Emma tilted her head at me, that signature smirk sharpening her perfect face. "A toast," she said loudly, drawing every eye. "To the one who always turns up broke, clingy, and still trying to count." Laughter erupted. My aunts, my uncles, even my dad, they all raised their glasses. My cheeks burned, but I held it in. They had no idea what I was holding. But what happened next changed everything. The truth was worse than I imagined. It always is with family. I grew up knowing my place. Emma was the achiever, the married one, the daughter who gave them a son-in-law with a luxury car and a house by the lake. I was the creative one who dropped out of college, bounced between jobs, and still lived in a studio apartment that smelled like damp towels. My parents never said it outright, but I saw the comparison in every glance. At every gathering, Emma's life was the main event. Mine was the cautionary tale whispered in the kitchen. For years, I believed it. I believed I was lazy, unlucky, incapable. Every time Emma slipped me a backhanded compliment, "I love how you don't care about appearances," I just smiled and died a little. I didn't see what was really happening. The subtle system that kept me small. 3 months before the picnic, I tried to buy a used car. My credit application was denied. The dealership called me over and slid a report across the desk. My score was abysmal. And the accounts? I didn't recognize half of them. Credit cards I never opened. A loan I never took. My stomach dropped. The truth didn't unfold like a detective movie. It hit me sideways in a musty office, holding a paper that said I owed $53,000. I didn't see this coming. Not in a million years. The investigation started slowly. I called my mom, frantic, thinking it was a system error. She sounded distant, almost irritated. "Maybe you forgot something you signed," she said. That was her default. Assume I was the problem. My dad didn't answer. Emma sent a voice note. "Oh honey, that's so stressful. But you really should track your finances better. I can recommend my advisor, but he's very expensive." I could hear the smile in her voice. Here's the thing about being the family scapegoat. No one believes you're a victim. They've already written your narrative. I almost gave up, almost accepted that I'd ruined my own life without knowing it. Then I remembered the day I'd left my laptop open at their house. The day Emma had been helping me with paperwork. The pieces clicked with a sound I felt in my teeth. I hired a forensic accountant I couldn't afford. The evidence was a slow, brutal reveal. Every fraudulent account traced back to the same IP address. Emma's home office. Her email was the recovery contact. The loan had been taken out 3 days after she'd posted on Instagram about her reset retreat in Sedona, using my social security number she'd stolen from our parents' files. I sat on my floor surrounded by printouts and cried until I couldn't breathe. Not just because of the money. Because my own sister had looked at my life and decided I wasn't even worth a real future. She'd made me collateral damage in her perfect existence. But the truth wasn't just financial. That I had to dig for. The real gut punch came a week before the picnic. I found out why. Emma's marriage was a facade. Her husband's business was drowning, the lake house was leveraged to the ceiling, and the luxury car was leased under her name with money she didn't have. She wasn't the savior of the family, she was a desperate woman pumping stolen cash into a sinking ship to keep up an image. I wasn't the broke one. I was the one she broke to save herself. I couldn't talk to anyone. Who would believe me? My mother still framed Emma's wedding as the happiest day of her life. My father called her his safe investment, while I was his risk. So I decided to wait. Wait until they were all in one room. Wait until she handed me the perfect moment on a silver platter. She did. That picnic was a production. White linen tablecloths, catered appetizers, a photographer wandering around like it was a brand event. I stood in my thrifted sundress, watching Emma flit from group to group like a queen. I felt invisible until she decided to make me visible in the worst way. Her toast caught me mid-sip of cheap lemonade. Every head turned. My father laughed the loudest. My mother touched her chest, amused. Emma held my gaze and raised her glass higher, waiting for me to crumble. I didn't crumble. I breathed. The papers were folded in my back pocket. The police report was already filed, waiting to be activated. I'd spent 3 months preparing a revenge that wasn't emotional, it was surgical. And it was about to begin. I set my glass down softly. The clink made them quiet for a split second. I smiled, not my broken smile, but something new. Something cold. I'd like to make a toast too, I said. Emma's smirk flickered. Just slightly. Only I saw it. I raised my glass slowly, looking right at her. To the needy one, I began, and the family chuckled, still thinking I was playing along. The one who was so desperate to appear rich, so terrified of being exposed, that she stole her own sister's identity. To the one who racked up $53,000 in my name while posting about gratitude and abundance. Silence. Complete, suffocating silence. My mother's hand froze midair. My father's face went slack. Emma's husband turned to her, confusion morphing into horror. And Emma, perfect, polished Emma, just stared at me like she'd seen a ghost wearing my face. I stepped closer, still holding my glass high. You told everyone I was broke. But the only reason I couldn't buy a car or an apartment or a life is because you stole mine. I pulled the papers from my pocket and let them fall onto the white tablecloth. Account summaries, IP logs, the filed affidavit. They scattered like dead leaves across the perfect spread. So here's my toast, I said, my voice steady. To the needy one who forgot that broke girls have nothing left to lose. No one moved. The photographer didn't click. The fairy lights blinked on in the dusk, lighting up a scene none of them would ever unsee. I drank my lemonade slowly, never breaking her stare. And when the glass was empty, I knew this was just the first act. The real reckoning was already in motion. But I didn't say that. Not yet. I simply smiled and watched her world start to burn. The silence didn't just fall, it crashed. It shattered every pretense that had held this family together for decades, and the sound of my glass hitting the white tablecloth was the final note of the old world. I stood there, surrounded by frozen faces and scattered papers, watching my sister's existence unravel in real time. The fairy lights blinked on overhead, soft and mocking, illuminating the evidence of her crime across the picnic spread like a stain. Emma's mouth opened, but nothing came out. The woman who had a witty remark for every occasion was suddenly mute, her throat working around words that had abandoned her. Her husband grabbed one of the papers, his eyes scanning, his tan draining to ash. I didn't rush. I had timed everything perfectly. "What is this?" he whispered, his voice trembling with the first tremor of a world collapsing. "Emma, what is this?" She laughed. Actually laughed, a brittle, desperate sound. "It's a joke. She's always been dramatic. You know how she is." Her hand fluttered toward our mother. "Mom, tell them. She's obsessed with making me look bad." But my mother wasn't moving. She had picked up a police report, the official letterhead stark against the rose-stained tablecloth. My father stood slowly, his chair scraping the patio, and I saw something shift in his face. Not anger, not yet. Recognition. The slow, sickening understanding that he'd bet on the wrong horse for 30 years. I didn't see this coming, not the depth of their denial. But what happened next changed everything. I reached into my other pocket and pulled out my phone. One tap of the screen, a pre-written text sent to a waiting number. "Emma Whitmore," I said, her full name cold on my tongue. "You didn't just steal from me. You stole from the idea of me. You made me the broke one so you could play the savior. But I found everything." She lunged forward, grabbing at the papers, her composure shattered. "These are fake. She forged them." Her voice cracked into something feral. "She's just jealous because no one loves her." I didn't flinch. "Keep talking. It'll look great on the body cam footage." That word, body cam, landed like a grenade. Every head turned as a uniformed officer stepped through the garden gate behind me, the blue lights of a squad car pulsing against the hedges in the dusk. I had filed the affidavit 3 days before and requested a delayed response, telling them exactly when and where to find us. Emma's face went so white I thought she might faint. Miss Whitmore. The officer's hand rested on his belt. We need to ask you some questions regarding a year-long identity theft and fraud operation. You have the right to remain silent. The screaming started then. Not from Emma, from my mother. No, there's been a mistake. She's my daughter, she's a good girl, she would never. The truth was worse than I imagined. My mother wasn't defending me. Even now, with the proof in her hands, she was defending Emma. That betrayal cut deeper than any credit score. I turned to my father, searching for the man who should have protected me. He stared at the papers, then at Emma, then at me, and I saw exactly when his world collapsed. The safe investment had just defaulted. I want to see the accounts, he said, his voice hollow. All of them. I pulled out a second stack from my bag, the hidden accounts I'd discovered just a week before. The ones I hadn't mentioned in my toast. You should sit down, Dad. Emma made a sound I can only describe as a wounded animal trying to form a plea. Dad, don't. But it was too late. He was already reading. I watched his face crumble as he saw the retirement fund his and Mom's, the one they'd built for 40 years, drained into Emma's attempts to keep her husband's failing business alive and her lake house from foreclosure. She had taken over $180,000 from them, siphoned through the same fraudulent shell accounts she'd used to destroy my credit. The generous gifts she'd given them on birthdays, the surprise vacation last Christmas, all bought with their own stolen savings. My mother grabbed the papers from his hand, her denial finally running into a wall of hard numbers. The sound she made will stay with me forever. It was the sound of a fantasy dying. Emma crumpled to her knees on the manicured lawn, her perfect linen dress soaking up grass stains. I was going to pay it back, she sobbed. I just needed time. I just needed to fix things. The business was going to turn around. You destroyed her, my father said, and for the first time in my life, he was pointing a shaking finger at Emma, not at me. She couldn't get an apartment. She couldn't get a car. She was working 3 jobs while you were posting pictures of your kitchen renovation. And you let us laugh at her. The officer stepped forward, handcuffs glinting in the fairy lights. Ma'am, you're under arrest for identity theft, elder financial abuse, and multiple counts of fraud. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Emma's husband backed away, his phone already in his hand, frantically dialing lawyers, maybe, or his business partners. I knew what he'd find. The hidden truth I'd uncovered 2 weeks ago but saved for this exact moment. His luxury car lease was in Emma's name, purchased with my credit score. His lake house was collateral for a loan that didn't exist legally because it was taken out using a stolen identity. His entire business revival was built on a foundation of felonies, and the instant this arrest hit public record, the bank would call in everything. I walked over to the picnic table and picked up a strawberry from the dessert tray. I bit into it slowly, the sweetness sharp against the chaos. You know, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, all those times she called me broke and clingy. All those family jokes. And the whole time, she was clinging to a lie so desperate it destroyed 3 lives to stay alive. My aunt stood up, her face pale. Did you have to call the police here? At a family picnic? I looked at her. She spent a year stealing my life while you all toasted her success. Yes, I had to call the police here. Emma was being led to the car now, her wrists behind her back, her perfect hair loosening into strings of failure. She twisted around, her tear-streaked face finding mine. You ruined me, she hissed. You ruined everything. I smiled, and it was the first real smile I'd worn in years. No, Emma. You did that. I just stopped keeping your secret. The squad car door closed with a heavy thud that echoed across the lawn. My mother collapsed into a chair, still clutching the papers, still trying to make the numbers rearrange themselves into something that made sense. My father didn't move. He just stared at the gate where his favorite daughter had just been taken away, his entire worldview gutted in 10 minutes. I gathered my bag, my single glass of lemonade still sweating on the table. No one tried to stop me. No one offered a hug or an apology. And I realized I didn't need one anymore. Their validation had been currency in a market I no longer traded in. As I reached the garden gate, I turned back one last time. The fairy lights were still blinking, festive, and cruel. The photographer had vanished. The picnic was a crime scene now, divided between shocked relatives and the phantom of the woman who had orchestrated it all. I saw my future unspool ahead of me, a cleared credit report, a new apartment, a life without comparison. They had spent 30 years making me believe I was the failure. But I wasn't the one in handcuffs. She tried to erase me. So I erased her.